to introduce Dr. Brad Learmonth, our speaker today, who's going to shed his light on our subject.
Or lighten your load. Causing trouble this morning, Jess. Time myself here so I don't go crazy here. Hi, everyone, and hi, Zoomers. It's nice to be back, and I thank you for inviting me once again. I'm going to begin this morning's talk with a poem by Rainer Maria Rilke. It's called A Walk. My eyes already touch the sunny hill, going far ahead of the road I have begun. So we are grasped by what we cannot grasp. It has its inner light, even from a distance, and changes us, even if we do not reach it, into something else, which, hardly sensing it, we already are. A gesture waves us on, answering our own wave, but what we feel is the wind on our faces. I've done a lot of walking since I was last here in August. Some of you may remember that I was about to travel to the Scottish island of Iona for a spiritual retreat in September. From the moment I set foot on Scottish soil, I was embraced by ancestral holding, and I walked a lot over those 10 days. Always something both ancient and brand new pulling me forward. Rather than being a week of wind and rain as forecast, we were gifted with days of an extraordinary light play of sun and clouds. As my journey unfolded into the hills and the spirit of Iona, I was touched in subtle and profound ways. Though with the group, I was called to solitude and spent the final 2 days on solo sojourns, guided by an inner light, a voice that spoke from the ancient rocks all around me. It was a remembering, awakening, an awakening into something else, which, hardly sensing it, I already was. And as I was thinking about this talk and my journey, not only of late, but over the long term, I'm thinking a lot about the nature of how I and we all struggle and suffer, and how we resist shifting out of that suffering and struggle. What comes to light for me more and more is the idea of allowing the darkness of that struggle to be an integral part of the experience, to settle into the darkness and allow it to do its rich and subtle work. What I've come to embrace on an ever deepening level is that there is no illuminating the self without the darkness. And darkness is the key to an expansion of consciousness, the sense that truth is light, to paraphrase Holmes. It is that light which wavers in the distance that reminds me to embrace the dark. It is the dark that gives me solace, releases the bonds of suffering, opens me and reveals the truth, the depths of my soul, the light. It is an inner journey that has been working on me all my life, often without knowing it or naming it. It is how I have survived. But now it takes new form, a more conscious form. So what I suggest is to consciously stop resisting the dark work of suffering, to open to what it is offering you, trying to teach you, to slip into a gentleness of being that illuminates the soul place. And that information and awareness that emerges lights the way to a newness of being. We all have our inner turmoils, and we are touched by the turmoil of the world. We fight our inner battles, and we're often fighting with others in reflection of that. Is it not time to allow that transformation of darkness to light the lamp of the soul and show the way? And is not that way the way of love, of radical love? For me, this work of giving up the fight does not diminish in any way my beliefs and convictions. If anything, it strengthens them by giving me release where there was resistance, responsiveness where there was reactivity, and, as if needed, allows me to listen deeply and to be listened to. I am more and more fascinated and attuned to the idea of witnessing that inner light, even if it remains at a distance and largely indefinable, ineffable. I don't yet know that it can be any other than that, for it is at once too essential to grasp, and yet offers a way of connection and expansiveness of consciousness that we often believe is beyond our reach. Holmes speaks of this in Science of Mind. He says, in flashes of illumination, the inspired have seen into the very heart of reality and have brought back with them a distinct impression of what they have seen and felt. A glimpse of this reality illumines the whole being with a flood of light. And he goes on to say, in moments of deepest realization, the great mystics have all sensed that one life flows through all, and that all are some part of that life. They have also seen substance, a fine, white, brilliant stuff, forever falling into everything, a substance indestructible and eternal. This seeing and sensing is, in my humble opinion, not relegated to mystics per se, but available to the mystic or that channel in all of us. I know that I have experienced it, and as a result, it holds a place within me that seeks to emerge again and again, often in the subtlest ways, but sometimes profound. It indeed revealed itself on Iona, and I'll get to that in a bit. I want to recount my most profound experience with this, which was many years ago in a period of extreme darkness, a darkness I could not yet fathom. I think I might have shared this very early on when I started speaking here, but I was completely ungrounded. I had made some really bad choices and I was suffering the consequences. In the midst of this, with my fate hanging in the balance, I remember seeking solace in the church, and I visited St. Thomas Cathedral for their lessons and carol service, which happens around this time of year. I was sitting way in the back and just trying to find some peace in the music and the mystery of the rituals. Suddenly, at some point well into the service, the very thing that Holmes described took over. A fine, white, brilliant stuff, forever falling into everything, a substance indestructible and eternal. It washed over everything in this magnificent cathedral. It infused all sight and sound, all sensation, and it had one message for me. What it spoke to me in no uncertain terms was that I was loved, not only on earth, but in the infinite and the eternal, and that all would be well. It was an epiphany, a message from divine source that left no doubt and allowed me to open to the possibility of surviving. And with that at my back, I did survive. Several very bleak years. I even thrived. That sense of settling into the darkness and letting it unfold allows for a revealing that cannot happen if we just keep resisting the shift. By settling into it gently, something else happens. As John O'Donohue says, when you stop resisting suffering, something else begins to happen. You begin to slowly allow your suffering to follow its own logic. Suffering does not visit you gratuitously. There is in suffering some hidden shadowed light. Destiny has a perspective on us and our pathway that we can never fully glimpse. It alone knows why suffering comes. Suffering has its own reasoning. It wants to teach us something. When you stop resisting its dark work, you are open to learning what it wants to show you. Often we learn most deeply and receive most profoundly from the black, lonely tide of pain. Suffering can often become a time of pruning. Though it's sore and it cuts into us, later we may become aware that this dark suffering was secretly a liturgy of life and growth. From my own experience, I offer this. The one more applies this logic in practice, the more one can learn about oneself, but also about the world around us. We suffer all of our personal stuff. We repeat historical patterns of suffering over and over, and we apply that to the world around us. It seems unrepentant at times. And then we are fueled by those who seek to ignite us in anger, hatred, and fear. We are fed into traps that perpetuate this, and we often succumb to it. But in the last couple of years, I, for one, have worked to take a very different approach by rejecting those impulses and allowing for a kind of expansiveness into a fierce and radical love. What happened to me in that church so many years ago opened a portal. It created a possibility for allowing heightened experience into my life. It wasn't front of mind, like, okay, today I'm going to create an epiphany. It simply allowed me, often on a largely subconscious level, to find my way through the myriad ways that I devised suffering for myself. Trust me, my resistance is legendary, especially to my shrink. But somehow other forces also guide me. And eventually they've won the day, touching me with divine source in large and small ways. How does this source touch you? Most recently, my sojourn to Iona showed me a path that propelled me into a deep dive into the soul of my ancestry and the healing of my connection to the religion of my childhood. I remember sitting in the service at the Abbey of Iona on one of the first nights we were there, and suddenly I was hearing the liturgy for the first time in a brand new way. It was illuminating something in me. It was a way that allowed me to heal the old wounds of my early church experience. I sat there and wept. And later in the week, I set off on a trek of my own to a destination that called to me in a moment of serendipity in an encounter with a wonderful woman at the Heritage Center. It was a mystical journey in which I was all alone, climbing over the hills of heather, through bogs and pathways down to a cove. I was alone the entire time, and each step of the journey fed me something intangible and yet profound in its soul information. It both released and awakened something in me, something I want more of, something I know will bring me back to source, to the light of my most inner being. We are at that time of year when we descend into our darkest days, and yet in just a few weeks, that will peak, and the days and the light will get longer. The world around us is at rest, restoring, shedding what it no longer needs before opening to the light and warmth of another season of growth. Would that we could just listen to this natural rhythm within ourselves and settle into the darkness for a period of rest and release, only to find that inevitable light and renew us and make us that much more whole. I'd like to leave you with more words from O'Donoghue. May the light of your soul guide you. May the light of your soul bless the work you do with the secret love and warmth of your heart. May you see in what you do the beauty of your own soul. May the sacredness of your work bring healing, light, and renewal to those who work with you and to those who see and receive your work. May your work never weary you. May it release within you well springs of refreshment, inspiration, and excitement. May you be present in what you do. May you never become lost in the bland absences. May the day never burden. May dawn find you awake and alert, approaching your new day with dreams, possibilities, and promises. May evening find you gracious and fulfilled. May you go into the night blessed, sheltered, and protected. May your soul calm, console, and renew you. I implore you all to go take a walk and lighten your load.